We got to do this Thomas Friedman thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm ready for this, man.
Okay, let me just. I think I'm ready too.
Our boy, everyone's favorite New York Times columnist, the man who needs no introduction.
Now, this is you sit down at the writer's desk and you set yourself a task. And there's certain mornings where you're like, I better have my coffee because this is going to take imagination. And that's where we're at with Thomas Friedman. This is, I mean, look at the way this is framed. It's very, you almost want to put a poster of this on your wall. 3 people I would interview about Afghanistan.
Who, pray
Who
tell?
would it be? I mean, I shouldn't have. You kind of spoiled it for me.
I'm sorry.
If I could know that this wasn't limited to the living, my first answer is easy. It'd be Michael Hastings, author of the Operators. I would, I guess. I don't know, who else are we interviewing for this?
I'd be interviewing some people from Afghanistan. I would hope.
That's a good one. I guess this depends. Are you looking for information to expose, or are you very much the type of interview? That's a very good answer, though. I was thinking like Obama, like, are you a war criminal? But is that
Bush? Yeah.
Bush, yeah. Tell us about double tap strikes. But that's not the way.
But the thing is, interviewing somebody living who can respond to you means they might say things that you might not like, or they might challenge a narrative that you want to put forward, right? And Thomas is smart enough to know that these kind of conversations are much better when you have them in controlled environments. And what environment is more controlled and walled off than your little imagination?
This is Thomas Friedman going to a crystal ball, or this is a seance. What we're about to read is a seance, folks. So as I watch events in Afghanistan unfold, I find myself trying to ignore all the commentary and longing instead to interview 3 people: President Lyndon Johnson, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Mohammed Zahir Shah, the last king of Afghanistan. Now, I mean, again, as creative writing, like, hello, Borges, like, we're really okay. President Johnson, what do you think of Joe Biden's speech about quitting Afghanistan? I listened to it. I have to say that I choked up. I'm not gonna do the impression. If only I had the. If only I am gonna do the impression. If only I had the guts to give that speech on April 7, 1965, about America's involvement in Vietnam, the war that I inherited and then expanded with that speech. If only I'll just say, if only he had the guts to say that in April 7th, 1965, he might have had his head blown off like the previous guy. Maybe that's a little bit of. Speculative thing to say, but the war I inherited and then expanded when the guy got his head blown off. Promise me one thing: you won't link to that speech. Sorry, Mr. I mean, just
this is the best part. Okay, this is the part where I was on the floor laughing. Right, for people who are listening, Friedman responds to, "Sorry, Mr. President, but I already did." Right. Look, Johnson. What he does in Vietnam is absolutely reprehensible.
Absolutely.
So don't people misinterpret this as me praising him or anything like this. But Johnson was a big ass, tough fucking guy, right? A guy who was infamous for his charisma and his ability to intimidate politicians and journalists. The idea that Thomas Friedman, right, this kind of just like sort of, wobbly man is like intimidating LBJ is a very funny image to me, right? That like LBJ is like, please, Mr. Friedman, don't link to this speech. And Friedman's, yes, he's it's amazing to me.
So yeah, here's Sorry, Mr. President, but I already did. Here are some highlights of what you said to justify sending more troops to Vietnam. Why are we in South Vietnam? We are there because we have a promise to keep, it's sort of like John McCain.
Yeah.
Since 1954, every American president offered to support the people of South Vietnam. We are also there to strengthen world order on the globe, from Berlin to Thailand. Our people whose well-being rests in part on the belief that they can count on us if they're attacked.
It's a chest thumping thing, but LBJ's response to Mr. Friedman rereading his words to him is golden.
Yes, Mr. Friedman, I wish I had said what Biden did. And what his predecessors never would. How many more generations of America's daughters and sons would you have me send to fight Afghanistan civil war when Afghan troops will not?
I'm sorry. I just have to pause it right here for a couple of things. One, that is just so amazing to me.
Insane.
That LBJ is going to be sitting around just like completely enamored with Joe Biden.
LBJ,
Honestly,
who in that tape we played in from the Pentagon Papers morning from Nixon, was through Kissinger saying, "Hey, whatever you decide to do to the press, we'll come out and support you." Like that
Johnson, somebody who, when asked why we were in Vietnam, pulled out his nutsack and put it on the desk of the Oval Office and said, "This is why," right? That guy is sitting here saying, like, "I wish I had said what Biden did," right? Just amazing. And again, I think it's the best part of this whole fantasy, though, is that, Friedman is like imagining Biden being just completely like subservient to him, but like, "Oh, please, Mr. Friedman, please don't link to my speech."
Or Johnson, yeah.
And then, too, that LBJ is just gonna be like, "And Friedman, you're just so fucking right about how smart and great Joe Biden is." I just want to take a second. I hate to make this point, but like flip this around for a second and say, I don't know, Fox News or Washington Times or something like this, like a big columnist there. If they did like a big conversation between like themselves and like Lincoln, and Lincoln's like, "Oh, I wish I had the courage to have said what Trump did," or Hoover, whoever you want to be your foil there, right? We would all be rolling around in stitches, and it's only in this kind of extremely insulated NYT bubble that they can get away with putting out something just so laughable as this, and putting on and printing it out and sending it to people, let alone writing it yourself, sending it to people.
Yeah, like even by the standard of a lot of this stuff is written for just dumb elites that are like kind of morons, like just actually like not very
just seals, just clapping.
Exactly. Even by that standards, this seems insultingly like. And then you just move. Okay, thank you, Johnson. You're done after saying I would have just done what Biden did, even though I did exactly the opposite.
Johnson just slowly ascends into heaven, from Friedman's office.
I mean, look, I don't quote me on this history. It's been a while since I've read my Hunter S. Thompson or by Robert Caro, but my understanding was there was issues with Hubert Humphrey. Humphrey got the nod from LBJ, in large part because of his, I think, war support. And then LBJ died during Nixon's first term. So like 3 or 4 years, I think, after, maybe it was in the second term, but like there's absolutely zero in the historical record to say. The only funny thing to say would be what I said, which is that like, hey, I was worried I was going to get assassinated if I didn't do this.
No, you're so right. I mean, I am somebody who does think that like LBJ should be revisited in the sense of like the Democratic Party makes this, honestly, it's not worth getting into this, but like it makes this like, this crazy turn after LBJ to just becoming extremely conservative and anti-worker. And LBJ like at least continued some traditions of FDR, right? And that's a real breaking point in the party. But anyways, the war stuff is just so unforgivable. And I think there is no proof or idea in the historical record to imply or insinuate that LBJ was just like sort of sitting around in the office, and just having a little, whiskey at the end of the day and just dreaming that he had the balls to end the war. As I said earlier, this is a guy who put his nuts on the table and said, we're killing people across the world because we have big balls in this country, right? This is not somebody who is some kind of squishy-hearted anti-war liberal that Friedman is making him out to be, his heart would just be swelling watching Biden leaving Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, really.
But honestly, I think like making this about LBJ, Matt, we're falling into the trap.
Okay.
We have to think from the author's perspective, which is why this is so fucking funny, right? Like this is who Friedman thinks all these people are like. And we're going to get into what Xi Jinping thinks in a second, according to Friedman. And that's some next level stuff. But it's like, it's amazing more so to be somebody who is like a professional columnist who's been doing it for decades, people consult him on important issues, historical issues, political issues. People say, "Oh, I can't wait to get this in my inbox." I mean, I don't know how many people are actually thinking that, but ostensibly he gets paid enough money and he's at a prestigious enough paper that some people must be fans.
No, this is the sort of
He's
thing
sitting
like,
around thinking that like LBJ is like, hoping that his like speeches don't get reprinted 50 years after he made them. I think that's probably something that you would want if you're an egomaniac like LBJ was.
Yeah, I mean, that LBJ is like, no, please don't familiarize your audience with my actual historical record, right? As you just make shit up, because that will undercut your point. All right, let's get to the.
Yeah, we got to keep going. We'll be here for an hour if we
really
do all the psychoanalysis through this. But the Xi Jinping is top notch too.
All right. President Xi, what do you think of all these American commentators proclaiming China a winner from Biden's withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan? Xi, oh my. These are what we call useful idiots. What planet are these people living on? He's got the idiom down perfectly.
Yeah.
We have a perfect situation going before Biden came along. America was hemorrhaging lives, money. I mean, look, he's just like, America was hemorrhaging lives, money, and energy and focus in Afghanistan, and its presence was making the country just safe enough for the Chinese multinationals to exploit.
Insane.
What a dastardly guy that. I mean, you're
diabolical.
You're talking to a journalist. Geez, keep it under wraps a little bit.
The next part is yeah, I mean, the next bit is Xi basically saying that, like, we had all of these interests in the country and the United States was protecting our interests, right? It was a perfect situation and now they screwed it up. So in the first paragraph, he says people who are criticizing Biden are useful idiots. And in the second paragraph, he's complaining about the withdrawal. So a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde, split personality from the premier of the Chinese Communist Party.
Two-faced Chinese, right, Tom? Yeah, okay. Pakistan. Should we read the?
He asked him, "How about the Taliban?" Friedman, "How about the Taliban?" Gee, the Taliban. You think we trust them? Have you noticed what their brothers in the Pakistani Taliban have been doing to our investments in Pakistan? Just read the Wall Street Journal from July 28th. Classic Xi, and he basically describes a event where a gunman attacked two Chinese nationals in Pakistan. And then Xi says, Pakistan cannot even keep us safe from its own Taliban and Baloch separatists in their own country. And we own Pakistan.
Jesus,
again.
What?
All over the place.
Is it Tony Soprano?
LBJ again. LBJ, the guy who maintained a brutal occupation and war on a country around the world, put his nuts on the table and said, that's the reason that we're killing all these people, right? Is all a big softy who just wishes he had the courage to make the statement that Biden did. But Xi, somebody who is not invading or attacking other countries, is saying things like, we own Pakistan. And don't even get me, and going back to the text, the imaginary text, and don't even get me started on how the Taliban victory could inspire our Uyghur Muslims. Joe, what did you do to us, Joe? You should have listened to your foreign policy experts in Afghanistan.
That line is so revealing. Joe, what did you do to us, Joe? That's like, Joe, please invite me to the White House and let me talk to you in the Oval Office.
You mean Friedman?
Friedman, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this is the biggest suck-up piece you could ever imagine. But I think I didn't realize that on the first read-through. The Xi, character in Friedman's mind is, very schizophrenic from being like, this is like everybody should see that this is a disaster, but also anybody who thinks that this was a good thing is an idiot, right? You know what I mean? It's like he doesn't even keep on the same thread throughout the whole text. The last thing we want is you refocusing all of America's resources and energy on competing with us for the industries of the 21st century instead of chasing the Taliban around the Hindu Kush. You don't need state media, man. You don't need state-run media when you get this shit in the free press, right? When one of the most decorated and famous papers, the one that people read, this is a reliable source, but this shit gets vetted.
The paper of record.
When this paper is writing fantasy conversations with dead and present historical figures that only exist to say the guy in charge is a really fucking smart guy, and he's defeating our enemies and also honoring our ancestors at the same time. Next level shit, and only the pen and the beautiful mind of Thomas Friedman could bring this to life. I mean, you got to give him credit where credit's due, but that's something else.
So now we got to get to learn a little bit of history, and I'm a fan of historical fiction as a genre. So Mohammed Zahir Shah was the last king of Afghanistan who ruled from 1933 until he was deposed by his brother-in-law in 1973, triggering nearly a half century of coups, wars, and invasions. He was the last of a 226-year dynasty of Pashtun monarchs to rule Afghanistan. Your Highness, what do you think of Biden's decision to just quit Afghanistan and of the Taliban takeover? David, why are you laughing at this? This is like a guy channeling like his like eyes. Friedman's eyes roll into the back of his head. It's like, oh.
No, man, because this next sentence, the thing that Zahir says here, is a sentence that could only be written by Thomas Friedman. I just love that there's no real attempt to actually do any kind of style or substance here. I mean, this is a Thomas Friedman essay. When we had Matt Taibbi in studio a couple years ago with Michael, and unfortunately this website is debunked. I mean, not debunked, defunct. There's this website that is like a text generator for like Thomas Friedman, right? And basically what you could do is you could give it a subject and a couple of keywords and it would write a Thomas Friedman essay. These first two sentences, like 100% came out of the Thomas Friedman generator.
So let me tell you a few things about my country. The first thing you have to know is that we are and always will be a mosaic of many different languages and cultures and ethnicities and approaches to Islam. A mosaic.
Wow, what a beautiful image.
Yeah, damn, a mosaic of that. I'm just like, whoa. There are 14 ethnic groups recognized in our national anthem: Pashtuns, Tajiks, Hazaras, Uzbeks, Balakis, Turkmens, Nuristans, Pamiris, Arabs. I mean, Friedman's trying to hit a word count. Like, you can just say 14 ethnic.
Well, I mean, the interview with the king, it's like they're all bad, but this one is, yeah, you're 100% right. It's like word count as much as possible.
We have Sunni, Sufi, Shia Muslims. The reason that the country was relatively peaceful under my leadership until my idiot cousin toppled me. Ugh!
Oh no!
You ruined it, you idiot. Was that people? That's the way I like to think about these things, like idiot cousins, not like sort of what happens geopolitically. The reason.
Wait, actually, like, I'm sorry, not to get too like Marxist or anything like this, but like this is just such a great like example of like of the way a lot of liberals like view history too, right? It's like, oh no, if only the idiot cousin didn't topple the king, then Afghanistan would be a completely different society today.
Exactly, you fucking idiot.
Because the reason the cousin is an idiot is because the reason the country was relatively peaceful under my leadership was that people saw me as a unifying symbol to whom they could all relate. I mean, where else could you get this kind of research and perspective, Matt, other than Thomas Friedman's imagination?
Like sort of international kindergarten.
I mean, did you know he went to Beirut for a little while?
Friedman did.
Yeah.
The Taliban represent only one element in our mosaic. Oh, he's returning to this image, which is nice. It makes sense. Pashtun Sunni Islamism. Since they were ousted by the Americans 20 years ago, all they have been thinking about is how to again own the Afghanistan they have lost. I mean, what the fuck is this baby food? Not how to govern anew the Afghanistan that exists today. Let me tell you, Mr. Friedman, more than 70% of Afghanistan's population is under 25-year-old. Oh, in case Mr. Friedman could check the CIA fact book.
Just this kind of condescension here, right? Let's not lose the thread that this is Friedman talking to himself, and essentially saying like, oh, all these idiots in Afghanistan, they actually don't understand the country like I do in these imaginary conversations I'm having in my room in New York or wherever the hell he writes his pieces.
Most of them know nothing about the Taliban and have never heard of Mullah Omar, just like all those 20-somethings in Iran who have never heard of the Shah and give Iran's Islamic rulers grief every day. They have been raised in a different Afghanistan in a different age, and they will not easily give up the freedoms they enjoyed these past 20 years. even if the country was a mess. Tribes in this part of the world, Mr. Friedman. The way he like peppers in like the Mr. Friedman and just again like word count, but like as a attempt at style. Tribes in this part of the world, Mr. Friedman, have a say. Like they're in like Casablanca or something like that. Me and my brother against my cousin. Me and my brother and my cousin against the outsider. Americans, oh wow, that's very deep. Americans were the outsider, and the Taliban could always find plenty of passive and active cousins for its project of getting you out. But now they and their brothers have to deal with all their cousins inside from those 14 different ethnicities. Maybe you should list them again. And that will be a different story. The Taliban have no idea. I mean, I think that this is part is I mean, fair enough analysis. Like, how is the Taliban going to govern when they're not just an opposition force, insurgency? Yeah, that is the well done, Tom. Vietnam's nationalist leader Ho Chi Minh spent his exile in Paris. These Taliban guys studied at best in madrasas in Pakistan, where they don't even teach science.
Oh.
Man, these
it
guys
goes on basically says like
Taliban even like Fauci. I mean,
so the flip here that's so funny with Tom is like this is somebody who's an adamant supporter of the war, and is now sort of like sitting up upon high on his own farce about his perceived wisdom and now his covenant with the universe that he's able to draw spirits from all different periods of time. But let me, before we close the book on this, I'll just pull it up myself. This last paragraph, I think, again, it's just this piece is hilarious on many different levels, mainly because Friedman's having an imaginary conversation, but secondly because it's just all about standing up for his boy Biden, right? Which again, like we're very happy that the occupation is over here.
Yeah, good job, Joe.
But this shit is just amazing. But if the Taliban try to keep power all by themselves with no cousins, watch out. The country will eventually resist it. The Taliban will crack down harder and Afghanistan will not implode. It will explode. It will break up into different regions and hemorrhage refugees and instability. It will be very ugly, and America and Biden will be to blame for the chaos. But America will also be gone. Afghanistan will then be a huge problem for its neighbors, particularly Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran. Friedman. Pakistan, China, Russia, and Iran. Maybe Biden had that in mind all along.
Just a completely,
you see that?
a completely sociopathic way, like to talk about an occupation of a country that
and a humanitarian. No, I'm sorry. Friedman's writing for his insane audience, right? A bunch of people who are so crazy they still see Russia under every rock around them, right? Bump goes in the middle of the night. It's Russia and maybe China, right? As they continue to hit that, make that argument. So the last image here is that maybe Biden left a secret weapon. So we destroy this country, occupy it, kill thousands of people. But people don't realize that it was actually our secret weapon all along to destroy all of our enemies in the region. I mean, that's psychopathic shit.
Literally,
dude.
it's the perfect plan. Let's just create an absolute fucking disaster in their vicinity that is very difficult to deal with by people like, oh my God. Like, they'll have to take refugees. Ooh. Got you.
But I mean, like beyond like how despicable that argument is, right? It's like to act like, this was the secret plan all along that Biden has like figured out, like the final checkmate, right? They think that I exposed my queen over here, right? But what they didn't realize is that was a distraction, and now checkmate.
Actually,
USA wins.
we were trying to fuck up in this way that challenges our sort of world sort of understanding of our credibility. It was actually our plan the whole time.
Just psycho shit, man. Just absolutely.